Girls, welcome back to Home Studio Q&A here on Studio Live today. My name is Pete and this is our weekly show where I attempt to answer your questions about the home studio, whether it's about recording, mixing, mastering, the gear, the mindset, anything at all. If you're here live on Facebook or YouTube, hello to you. We do have a form. If you go to studiolivetoday.com/QA, there is a form linked there and you can ask your question. You can actually do that through the week. I leave the form open all week, so you don't just have to wait till the show. If you've got a question during the week, jump over to that form. It's linked down in the description and it's simple. studiolivetoday.com/QA. Just pop your question in that form and I will get to as many of those as I possibly can on each and every show. Righty dokie. Now, today we are talking about one of my favorite topics because I'm an old man, and as an old man, I like to get nostalgic and talk about the beginnings and the old days and the start of computer music. Now, I'm lucky enough, or I don't know if that's the word, but for my entire life, when I was born, there was no digital music, at least no consumer level digital music. So, despite the fact that, music and I guess digital synthesis all commenced back in the 1950s, throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it wasn't really a viable option for the actual recording of music. So, there wasn't digital platforms that we could actually record music or use to trigger music or actually play music using automated digital means. Now, in 1983, that all changed with the introduction of something that you may be familiar called the Musical Instrument Digital Interface. Yes, MIDI. MIDI has been around since 1983, so it's about to celebrate its 40th birthday in a couple of years' time, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, it's almost as old as me. So MIDI, if you don't know, is the standard. Roland were pivotal in developing it. You can read the Wikipedia article. I've got it linked here. I've got it on the screen here, so jump over to Wikipedia, read all about MIDI. But MIDI was originally designed to enable keyboard manufacturers to have a way of programming and controlling their keyboards. So original MIDI, because the computers of the time were not really integral within computer recording or computer music, it was more around your hardware that you had. It was more the ability to program your hardware and be able to play it back. So my first MIDI experience was in the early 90s on an IBM PC. So I kind of missed the whole. I know a lot of folks were into the Atari ST. That was a very common computer used for music. The Commodore Amiga was pretty common to use for MIDI and for music. But it wasn't until the PC that I got my first Sound Blaster Pro that had its own MIDI port. And I bought a MIDI cable and plugged in my old Casio MIDI keyboard. And I thought it was just some sort of voodoo magic because I had an application. I cannot even remember the name of it. See, this is how bad I am with this. But I remember having it was made by Creative. It was like their default MIDI app, and I just remember being able to program in, and then there wasn't even any really good instruments on the computer itself. But what I could do is play in my instruments and then edit them on the screen, and then hit a button, and it would play it back on my keyboard. And I thought this was just the most amazing thing ever. That I was sitting there with my PC, and then I could actually edit the notes. So on the screen, I could move my cursor around, and it was keyboards back then because it was in DOS, so it wasn't even really mouse based. So you'd move your keyboard around and you'd program in the notes, and that was sort of my first exposure. But throughout the 80s, a lot of electronic music was created using MIDI, and it really became the standard. Hence, it was the standard that was put in place for digital music. Now, let's talk about the other side of the coin, and that is digital sampling. So around about the same time, around about the 80s, while people were creating and composing with MIDI, there was another group of folks who were using some digital sampling. So if we come over here, again, we've got our Wikipedia article open here. Digital sampling, as it says here, is the reuse of a sample or sound recording in another recording. Now, these days, you think samples and you're like, you just get a sample, you rip something from YouTube, or you grab a sample from a producer, and you're a beat maker and you get a sample and then you put it in your beat. But the original sampling was using actual samplers. So these were keyboards or these were modules that would actually sample a sound and then you could play back that sound. Now, I know this sounds super, super simple now, but it was actually revolutionary. Back in the 80s when it was first developed, it was super revolutionary in that you would be able to record in a sound, a drum sound or a keyboard sound or whatever, and then you would play it and you'd be able to play it at different pitches on a keyboard. And that was how you were able to actually record in sound. So that was super, super cool. And back in the 80s, this was what folks were doing. Throughout the 80s and 90s, sampling and MIDI and digital was starting to sort of make their way slowly into regular recording. But remember, back in those days, if you were a professional in a professional studio, it was all about tape. So if we're talking about digital, we have to talk about analog because before digital, there was analog. So MIDI was fine, sampling was fine, but for people that were recording guitars and vocals and actual live instruments, there wasn't a whole lot of interest in this, not yet anyway, because it really couldn't help them out. Because at the time, the recording quality that you would get on a computer, so on a PC or a Mac, because Macs were sort of coming up around that time as well, it just wasn't good enough. It was 8-bit quality. It was like 11 kilohertz sound. So it really didn't enable you to record good quality music unless it was a sample. And what started happening is before we switched over from analog to digital. So original home recording was on things like reel-to-reel cassettes or 4-track cassette recorders. And it wasn't until PCs and Macs got fast enough and powerful enough with enough storage space that we actually were able to record digital audio. But before that, there were standalone audio recorders that were actually used, which were like a 4-track tape machine, but with a hard drive. And this was like mind-blowing stuff because a lot of home studio recording folks had 4-track recorders, and a lot of them started going out and buying these 4-track and 8-track digital recorders. And in fact, the very first demo I recorded in a real studio was on an 8-track hard drive recorder. And I think from memory, it had something like 250 was it megabytes? See, this is where the memory needs to come back in here. I wish I documented all of this, but it was an 8-track recorder, an Alesis or something like that. And yeah, I went into the studio. I was blown away that this could be recorded, and then you could like go back and you could record over it. And there was no tape. Unbelievable. However, in that meantime, something else cropped up, and this is the scene that I was involved in. And let me know if anyone recognizes when I pop up a screen such as this one. This is an application, a DOS program called Scream Tracker 3. And this is what I credit as the first platform that I really started actually recording music. So making my own entire compositions and pieces of music. And this, I want to show you this because this is exactly what it looked like and how it was used. So what you can see there is you have a number of tracks, and in those tracks you would add a sample. So you would just put a sample in there, and then you would trigger what note you wanted to play, the velocity, and it was like programming a song. It was super fun. I don't know how I did it, but you can see there that each of those channels that's playing is actually playing a different sample. You could pan, you could have some on the left, some on the right. You could have a whole bunch of different instruments, but all of the instruments were just a sample. And this was around about the mid-90s when I was first getting into electronic music. I would do this. And the embarrassing part of this that I don't share to too many folks is that I was part of a group. Because back in the day, there was something called the demo scene. We can get nostalgic about the demo scene another day. But in the demo scene, there were demo groups, and I created music for a demo group, and my name was Star Tracker. Yeah, you heard me. Star Tracker. Embarrassing, but true. And we'll talk more about this. I've got a 5th anniversary Studio Live Today show. I'm sure we'll get super nostalgic for all of this stuff then as well. Now, our buddy Bubba here has mentioned DAT tape as well. So yeah, the sort of transition between analog and digital, DAT tape was another thing that came in there, and recording to DAT was sort of the first realms as well. If you weren't on a hard drive recorder, you were probably using digital audio tape. And it wasn't until we started sort of getting, again, these powerful PCs that could actually record audio. So there were programs like Cool Edit and like Cakewalk that could actually record audio and combine virtual instruments using MIDI with actual audio recordings. Because remember, what I said before, 8-bit and 11 kilohertz wasn't good enough. If you think CD quality is 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz. So it wasn't until we got 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz sound able to be recorded in real time with multi-tracks on a hard drive of a computer that we could actually do this. So that was when I got back into music, which was probably around 10 years ago, around sort of the early 2010s. We were definitely well and truly into that. Pro Tools had taken a strong hold on all of the professional studios. All the pro studios, most of them, were converting their old analog tape machines to Pro Tools HD rigs. Now, early days of that recording was very locked down. You had to buy the hardware that went with the software. If you're using Pro Tools, you had to have just the Pro Tools specific hardware to go with it. So it wasn't the utopia that we have now, where you can just get any software you could use: Logic, Reaper, GarageBand, Pro Tools, whatever you want to use, and then you can grab a Focusrite, a Steinberg, an Apollo, whatever interface you want. It wasn't that mix and match paradise that we have now. So through the 2000s, I got into the recording, as did many other people. And whilst the pro studios were starting to set up their rigs, folks were realizing that they could do the same thing at home. They could get a USB audio interface and they could start home recording. And that's where the revolution began. And then the final chapter, and it's not the final chapter, but the current chapter is that we've realized that, hey, we don't have to just wait for our desktops and laptops. We can record on our mobile phones and our tablets. So the fact that I can record 44.1 kilohertz, 24-bit sound on my phone, when 20 years ago on my PC, I couldn't record that. It's kind of ridiculous. It's next level here. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff we could talk about, like consoles. I know Patrick over at the GarageBand Guide credits the Music 2000 app on the PlayStation. It's the first thing that he used for digital music. There's a whole bunch of other things. There's portable digital recorders that folks used. There's a whole bunch of other things. But I just wanted to touch briefly on this because I know that it's going to probably just trigger some folks with their nostalgia. And yeah, as we've got here, Bubba's there. Yeah, A1, C1, A1, E1, run. Do it. Absolutely. And again, yeah, there's other things like you could program BASIC. I remember in my early days, you'd program BASIC to play back audio, but it was like a mono speaker, like doo 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 doo. There's all the chip tune stuff that folks were doing in the 80s on consoles. There's a whole bunch that you can go. And yes, Doctor's Order says, Doctor's Orders, Star Tracker. So yeah, if you search deep enough in the internet, you will find Star Tracker there. Yells. So let's jump in and see what folks have had to say about what they're doing and what they're using. We'll come right back up to the top here and see if anyone's got any comments about all of this stuff. Michael said it was over the moon when I got our first colour TV. Yeah, right. Going old school. And yeah, that's the meaning of MIDI. Yes, musical instrument digital interface is indeed the meaning of MIDI. Doctor's Orders started on the Atari ST and it was amazing. Yeah, so because I was a Commodore guy, I was on the Commodore 64, which was not as good for the music stuff. But the Atari ST, correct me if I'm wrong, but it had like MIDI ports, or one of the models, the 520, had MIDI ports built in. So it was before its time. And artists like Fatboy Slim, if there's a cool documentary on YouTube, look it up, like Fatboy Slim music top 200 or something. I'll try and find it and put it in the description here. But he actually shows he's still got his original Atari ST and all his floppy disks with his original samples. And his the iconic album, which I'm forgetting the name of right now, the one that had all the songs Praise You and all the popular songs from the 90s, that was made using samples and using his Atari ST. So I think that's pretty darn cool. And as Tom says, too bad there weren't GarageBand on the Apple IIc. Yeah, and look, I'm sure someone's going to comment on this video and say, hey, I was creating music on the Apple IIc back in the day. And yeah, it was definitely possible. Daniel says, I saw a video of someone using like Cubase in the 80s. Yeah, if you check out some of Dan Baker's videos, Dan Baker, another great YouTube content creator, he's got some really, really cool videos about some of the old gear that he uses to create music. Sampling, yes. Tom says sampling changed everything, really. Yeah. Exactly. Sampling was the evolution of things, and sampling kind of that we credit. If every time you use a digital instrument now, keep in mind that is using sampling. So if you're using like the Ravenscroft piano, so that is a digitally sampled piano. Any virtual instrument you're using, what they're doing is they're sampling, but they're, instead of just getting one sample and just changing the pitch, it's sampling every pitch and every different velocity of that digital instrument. So sampling has made a really, really cool, a really big change in that. And Mark says, I remember Keith Emerson moving cables on his synth on stage to reprogram sounds. There you go. So yeah, there's lots of stuff we could talk about, but it's really fun. Joe Glenn, I'll let you have the final word on this. I used to use a TIAC 4-track reel-to-reel. So yeah, respect to folks who were there at the start. Kind of like how I say respect to folks who were like jailbreaking their iPhones, because that led to the App Store, which led to apps, which led to GarageBand, which led to our ability to make things on our phone. Really respect to those that started out where you were, how you split, a track and then you like delete a bit in between and move a bit. Yeah, that was like a razor blade. So if you wanted to split a tape and cut it, the reason it's called cutting is that you would get a piece of tape, you would cut it, you would remove the bit you didn't want, and you would literally have to stick it back together manually. So yeah, next time that you're getting frustrated with your optimizing performance on your magic tiny box that you've got in your hand, maybe think about the folks that were the pioneers that helped us get there at the start. Alrighty. We'll move on here. John Doggendorf says, Dan Baker is a great contributor to iOS music. iOS is the platform of the future, baby. Ain't that the truth? I believe anyway. Let's get on to your questions, shall we? We're going to have a quick sip of cold coffee and we'll dive in. If you're just joining us here, you can drop a question by putting it in the form, which is at studiolivetoday.com/QA, and we will go through some of those questions now. There we go. So we've got a question. Now, I don't know if we answered this one last time, but I'm going to answer it again anyway. It's from Kenneth, and Kenneth says, hi, Pete. If you create a track in GarageBand, can you save that track for another project? And yes, I'm almost certain that we did answer that before. And yes, you can. So you can copy and paste between tracks, between files. I'm just going to see, can I... I'm trying to, I'll see if I can run Reflector, because in case you're just joining us, I'm having some internet issues here today, and it's meaning that I'm, is this going to work? No, because I'm not on my Wi-Fi network, so it's not going to, actually, we're going to have to go screenless today. It's going to be an interesting one. Otherwise, we'll run out of bandwidth. So we don't have internet. I had a power failure just before the show. The internet still hasn't come back up, so I'm on my phone's hotspot, which is why you might find the audio cutting out occasionally. But yeah, you can in GarageBand and in most applications, you can copy a piece of audio or a bit of MIDI data and then paste it over to another project. So what I do is, if I've got an ideas folder on my GarageBand, in my GarageBand, and then any ideas that I have there, if I want to use them in another project, all I need to do is copy and paste them across. Keep in mind that the BPM may be different, the key may be different, but yeah, there's nothing stopping you having a whole bunch of projects that are literally just little snippets, little chunks of ideas, and then when you want to use them in a different project, you just copy them and paste them and bring them on across. All right, thank you for your question. Let's move on to the next one. And this is from Yancey Drew Lambert, who says, is there an audio MIDI mixing controller for GarageBand? Now, this is a good question. The problem with GarageBand is that it doesn't have any MIDI Learn, MIDI CC functionality. So what that means is you can't use things like controllers that have knobs and sliders and pads and expect to be able to program those. The same with faders and control surfaces. So if you're using something like Logic or Reaper or or Pro Tools, then you can use control surfaces that you can actually control and change the volume of track. Ableton Live has the ability to do this. GarageBand's a little bit limited in its ability to do that. So if I show you what I mean here, if we jump over to studiolivetoday.com/gear. That's my gear guide. It's being a bit slow today because of those internet issues that I was talking about. So the reason that for GarageBand users, I recommend devices like the MIDI keyboard that I recommend is a pretty basic one. It's something like this, the M Audio KeyStation Mark III, is that it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, which is actually a good thing when it comes to GarageBand, because GarageBand will allow you to use, if we come down here, it'll allow you to use things like your pitch bend wheel and your modulation wheel. It'll allow you to use your octave up and down controls, and of course your keys. It'll measure the velocity and the key that you're hitting, and it will record all of those. Now, if you go with something as Jade has and has just replaced, but she has the M Audio Code series, that has a whole bunch more. But the problem with the Code series, I don't have Code anymore. The Oxygen, same thing. The Oxygen does similar sort of stuff. So if we take a look at this one, you can see here that you've got these MIDI sliders, and you've got pads there as well, and you've got some pots there, some knobs that you can twiddle your knobs. The thing is, this basically does the same function as the key station. Costs 2.5 times as much, but if you're using GarageBand, you're not going to have the functionality of all this cool, funky stuff across the top. If you're using another app that does have Mini Learn, that you can program these to do different things with your synthesizers or with your tracks or with your volume or whatever, then that's cool. But with GarageBand, at least on iOS, and folks here can correct me on Mac if you like, because I haven't used Mac enough to know if it does actually have MIDI Learn, but it's pretty basic. Basically, these 8 drum pads will control 8 drum sounds in your drums, but they won't be programmable. You won't get to determine which one is which. So that's my view on that. Yeah, unfortunately, I'll just go back and make sure. So, is there an audio MIDI mixing controller for GarageBand? Not really, or if there is, I don't really know about it. So, but that's the beauty part of the Home Studio Q&A, is that if you have an answer and you're watching here live, then let us know. Maybe someone does have a suggestion or has experienced something that has worked for them. So do let us know if that's the case. But thank you, Yancey, for your question. Question here from Dave. Excuse me a moment. Question from Dave, and I'll resist the urge to say Dave's not here, man. But I guess I just did. Question from Dave is BandLab. Are you familiar with it? Now, funnily enough, we were having a conversation about this on a platform called, I forget the name every time, Clubhouse. There you go. This is going to date this because Clubhouse may be the next big thing in social media, or it may not be here by the time you actually watch this in like 3 months' time. But Clubhouse is an audio-only social network. And I was having a chat there with a few members of the Create, Record, Release group yesterday with Jade and Bubba and Joey and Gary and James. And yeah, we were talking about BandLab and Tom as well. We're talking about BandLab. And the confusing thing about BandLab is it's a few things, right? It's there's BandLab by Cakewalk, which is the PC software. There is the BandLab Making Music Online platform, which is this one here, where you can actually create and collaborate online. There's also a string off of that, which is on your Android or your iOS device. You can actually use that to create music because it's all cloud-based. So imagine GarageBand, but in the cloud. So you can download the app, you can use it on your computer, you can use it on your mobile device, whether you're iOS and Android. I haven't looked into it in a great deal of detail, but I probably should. So the short answer is no, I'm not super familiar with BandLab. Oh, and it's also, I believe it's like a social network as well. So I believe there's like a network and a communication component of it. Others that have used it more can correct me in the chat here if there's things that I've missed or if they know more about it. But that's my understanding at this stage, is that yeah, it is a very cool platform. I know a lot of people are collaborating on BandLab. A lot of people are making cool music, and I do hear very positive things about it. But I just haven't had the time to dive in. But if you would like me to, if you're watching here live or on the replay and you would like me to dive into it, then do let me know, because it does look super interesting, and I have been keen to check it out. So if you want us to investigate and maybe do some Studio Live Today collaboration on BandLab, let me know. That could be a bit of fun. But thank you, Dave, for the question. Let's continue on with the next question. And this one comes from Joe Glenn. Said, can't remember how to add chords in GB Virtual Bass. Playing in C, I need to add a D chord, please. Now, this is one that I wish I would be able to actually have my... you know what I'm going to have to do? Because I don't have my iPad able to display here today, what I'm going to do is actually... I'll find the video that I actually showed this. So what you can actually do is you can edit the chords. So if you're using GarageBand and you're playing particular chords, you can actually edit the chords that you have. So if you're in, say you're in C, it'll give you C major, F major, G major, it'll give you A minor, it'll give you E minor, it'll give you all the relative majors and minors of that key. But what if you want to play something out of that key? Well, you can actually change the chords. So here is the video that I'm talking about. If you jump over here, if you search my name, Pete Johns Edit Chords, we'll just we'll throw this one up here. And I'll just mute it out. We don't need to listen to me talking about it. I'm walking along there. I used to do a lot more of that. I'll just find the bit where I show how to do it. Here we go. So here we are in a key signature. So I'll just go back a little notch there. See, this is going to be a bit clunky, but it should show it. So there I am, and you can see that I'm in C. So C, F, G, D minor, A minor, E minor, all the rest of it. I can just hit on those chords. But what you'll see me do here is go up to the settings, I think, in a moment. Come on past, Pete. You can do it. See, I'm yammering on. Stop talking, mate. Get to the point. There we go. So if you go up to the settings, go to the settings in the top right there, and then if you scroll on down, there's that blue button, Edit Chords. And here you can just tap on one of those chords and dial in any chord you like. So if you're playing in C and you want to add whatever I'm adding in here, an E major, which I often like to use, for a bit of variation, you can go from a C up to an E, then an F, then a G. Then that's all you need to do. Go in there, your settings, edit chords, and change them. But you have to actually be in chords mode. That's what trips me up when I try to do this, and what trips some folks up is you have to actually be in the chords mode. If you're in notes mode, it won't give you the edit chords function, which is a bit of a bummer. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully that helps you out, Joe, and anyone who's looking to add different chords into your GarageBand projects. Brad example, there is a Studio Live Today community on BandLab. If you're on there, find the community and join. It's fun collaboration to share music. I completely spaced on that, Brad. I think we talked about this last week or a couple of weeks ago that folks were on BandLab and Brad set up a community. So there you go. It exists. I need to get into it, clearly. Send me a reminder email, Brad, and I'll try and get in and actually play around with hello to Bruce. I'm late, but this looks familiar. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks for being here on the channel. And if anyone has any other questions, please do add them to the question list because we'll get through. We've got about 4 more questions here. We'll probably have time for a couple more. So if you're just joining us here, studiolivetoday.com/QA is the place to add your question. And we'll continue. We'll remove that one and go to our next question, which comes from Emobot9000. Very cool. Emobot9000 says, what are your favorite and least favorite music streaming platforms? What a good question. Favorite and least favorite music streaming platforms. I'm going to ask this to the audience here. What music streaming platform do you use? Or do you like the best? And which ones do you not like so much? We'll go through some of the comments that folks have here live. Here's my story. So currently I have YouTube Music, which used to be called Google Play Music, and I do have Apple Music because I got it free, I think, with my new phone for a year. Is that how it works? No, that was Apple TV. I think I just pay for it now. I forget. It's sad. I've got so many subscriptions, I forget about which ones are which. But yeah, so I have YouTube Music and Apple Music. YouTube Music is the one I use the most. And the reason for that is that I am a YouTube Premium member. And the reason I like YouTube Premium is that I have the family plan. So let's just come in here and I'll show you what I do. So I have the family plan, which means that everyone in my family gets to, there you go, you have YouTube Premium. So everyone gets their own individual accounts and everyone gets access to this. So YouTube Music Premium, which has all the same songs as Spotify or as Apple Music. It's just on a different platform. So it used to be Google Play, now it's YouTube Music. We get individual accounts for all of my family members. You get ad-free YouTube. So this is the big difference. The reason that I like YouTube Music is that you also get YouTube Premium, which gives you ad-free YouTube. So I haven't watched a YouTube ad in about 5 years. So I do watch them occasionally. I'll go into incognito mode to legitimately just watch the ads that are on my videos and other people's videos just to get a feel for what's actually going on and see what it's like to watch it where there are ads, because I know if you don't have Premium, you are watching ads. So no ads. You also get the ability to background play. Now, I listen to a lot of audio. And when I'm watching YouTube videos, I'll often listen to just the audio of those videos. And it also means that if there's a music video on YouTube that you want to listen to, you can just do it in audio mode, which means if you have your phone and you turn it off and put it in your pocket, the audio is still going of the YouTube video. And I find that completely just a game changer. I need to be able to do that. So that's the second reason I use it. And the third reason is it's integrated within my everything. So because I create on YouTube, I listen on YouTube, I interact, I engage on YouTube. Yes, Google kind of own my soul, which is a bit weird because you'd think that I'd be more down the Apple ecosystem given the sort of stuff that I talk about. But the other thing is this one here, downloadable. So there's actually an app that I have on my PC and I haven't put it on the Mac yet, but I need to. So as well as all your other streaming stuff, you can add in your own stuff that isn't on that platform and integrate it into your own collection. So it puts it up into the cloud, and then when you're streaming anything, you can actually stream that as well. So before Tool were on a lot of streaming platforms and before the Beatles were on a lot of streaming platforms, I just uploaded my whole Tool and Beatles CD collection that I had as MP3s to Google, what was then called Google Play Music, and then it synced those with my account. So when I was out and about, I could just use that and integrate that. So if I wanted to listen to Tools Anima, I didn't have to go and find a separate service or have the actual files. They were right there for me. So I know this didn't mean to sound like an ad for YouTube Premium. Yeah, there you go, background play. That's what we love. I didn't mean for it to be an ad, but it really is my favorite platform. And I know I should be on Spotify just for the fact that that is the number one platform, but I don't see the need. And I pay, I think it's $18 a month, but that's for 6 accounts. So and you could use those with your family, people that are your family. See what I'm saying? But yeah, it's a really good way to engage. And if you're into video and music like I am, then that's the way I go. I'll see what other folks have got. What other folks are using. Scrolling on down. Amaracia says, don't have any money to pay for subscriptions like music streaming, so I just buy songs I want outright. That's the other way to go. I still like buying songs. Buying songs is still cool. Official Mr. Spice has YouTube and Apple. Michael's saying he also uses BandLab. Yeah, and Rochelle says, I'm with you, Amaracia. Plus, there's a free version of Spotify and, of course, YouTube. Exactly. Adam Burr says, as on Android, I use YouTube Music as it has my Google Play library predominantly. Yeah, exactly. And that's a really cool thing to be able to have your own library. Gary Hubbs says, I like the background play, but I'm frugal to a fault. It's a game changer, Gary. I promise you. Tom says, can't pay for streaming music though. Scott says, for streaming music, I use Apple Music. So Apple does that too. Yeah, so Apple do have a family plan as well. And I think, can you put your own music on Apple Music? I've never tried it. Jade Star uses Apple Music and YouTube Music. Cool. Kim says, I use Tidal, but switched to Spotify because it's less expensive and way less glitchy. Didn't notice a sound quality difference. And Scott says, I just converted my Google Play to YouTube Music. I had a bunch of CDs I uploaded a while back. I forgot about. Yeah, how cool is it? I'm the same. I go back and look at my collection. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got all these CDs that I uploaded. It hasn't dated well, but there's a comedy creator, a comedian called The 12th Man, who did a bunch of CDs back in the 90s back, and very non-politically correct. Don't go and check him out because I don't think it just doesn't age well. But yeah, all of those, and all my old Martin Malloy and all my Australian comedy albums that are just not anywhere. Like you can't get those streaming online. So like old Will Anderson and Adam Spencer and all the comedians I used to listen to, I've got their CDs and they're all there as well. Gino pays for Spotify. Joe Glenn, YouTube, and Spotify as well. And Dr. Zorda says, I just ask Alexa and let her sort things out. There you go. There you go. All righty. And the doctor says, confuses the hell out of me, but she loves me. Yeah, and I don't say that. I don't say the word Alexa anymore because I get in trouble from folks who have Alexas sitting next to their computers or next to their devices, and suddenly it starts talking to them. So that's always fun. I think, again, I was on a Clubhouse call with Joey Helpish, and I'm pretty sure he had that problem yesterday. Although that was the interview I did with him. We'll continue on. So yeah, thank you, EmoBot9000. That was an interesting question. Little drink of cold coffee, and we'll continue to our next question from Joe and Barry. Glenn says, any way I can play electric 6-string guitar into an interface and make it sound like a bass? Please remind me how to solo a track or which tutorial to use for the info. Cool. So if we come over, and again, this is where I wish I actually had my proper setup here. If you're just joining us, I'm on my hotspot today, so I can't stream my iPad or my phone to my screen, so it makes life a little bit difficult. So I've done something, guitar as a bass. I've done something like this, but I can't, yeah. Look, there you go. I have actually done this video. So can you use a guitar as a bass guitar in GarageBand iOS? So if you type in Joe, go to your YouTube search and go Pete Johns guitar as bass, and you'll get this little video. It's pretty old, and I can't actually remember what I do or say in it, but it looks like I use my old little black guitar there, and yeah, and I use it to create a bass track. So there you go. And it looks like I do some turning on of monitoring and probably some soloing of tracks in there. So that one may be what you need for everything. Yeah, look, there you go. So I'm playing around with the tracks there in the video, and it looks like in a minute, yeah, solo. solo the tracks. So that one's going to be, I think, the best video for you to check out, Joe. So just search Pete Johns guitar as bass, and you should be able to find those. MIDI Guitar 2, yeah. So Danny Broderick says that, yeah, there is an app called MIDI Guitar 2, which you can use your guitar to program a MIDI instrument. So that's another option there. Or, of course, you can use a keyboard to program in a bass. But if you want that actual real guitar sound, then try it with that. I think in that video from memory, I'd use the pitch shift plugin to pitch shift it down an octave, and it sounded okay. I can't remember. In fact, you know what? I'm not going to get in trouble for playing bits of my own video, am I? So I can come in here and let's see what I actually did and what this sounded like. So if we turn the volume on and turn it up a little bit. Problem, you can hear the vocal transformer, and doing it in drop D tuning has actually already I talked very fast back then. Pretty good. So let's now try this little trick. We'll come in here to the mixer. We'll go to our plugins. Let's turn back on this vocal transformer. Yeah, use the vocal transformer. Now let's hit play and see what it sounds like now. That's not bad, yeah? Okay, some of the notes are a bit weird. Yeah, so there is our problem. You can hear the vocal transformer adds in a little bit of it. I mean, it's not bad, yeah. I think if you're at a pinch and you needed to get the guitar and pitch shift it down with the vocal transformer, that was interesting, wasn't it? Now, I did tell you that we were going to have some problems here and some connection issues, but that is all cool. We will continue on because you know what? It's live and the show must go on. So hopefully that helps you out, Joe and Barry. Yeah, experiment with that vocal transformer plugin, pitch shift down an octave, and you should get a decent usable bass sound by the sounds of it. All right, let's move on to our next question while everything stays up. Doctor's Orders has a question and says it is this. If I put a video on YouTube and set it to private, it gets views. Who is looking at it? I did one the other day and it reached 12 views before I decided to make it public. None of my followers could see it and I did not click on it. What an interesting one. Now, there's two things here. There's three different ways that you can put a video on YouTube. There is unlisted, private, and public. So if it's private, that's a concern to me because private means that it should just be for you. So if you actually have the private selected, that's more of a challenge. So if you can confirm here in the chat, Doctor, if it was private or unlisted, that would be good. Unlisted, the challenge with that is that I've come across this before as well. If I put an unlisted video out, but I put it in a playlist, it can be played. Obviously, if you share that link with anyone, but it sounds like you didn't share the link with anyone, then it won't get played. But if it's actually in a playlist, so if I release a video, I need to make sure I don't add it to any playlists until the very last minute, until I'm about to make it public, because it goes through there. So Doctor's Orders has confirmed that yes, it is private. That is wacky because I haven't come across that before. All of my private videos have only ever had watches that have been done by me. Unless, and I can't see why it would be 12 times, because YouTube do actually do manual checks of videos. So there will be times where they will actually go in and they'll look at a video, but it shouldn't have caused that. So yeah, if it's not been playlisted and not shared, as Doctor's Orders is saying here, then yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it could, and as Gary Hubs is saying, yeah, peer review. So it could be, and as Ed Zielinski said, it could be the folks at Google reviewing. And it does. Occasionally, you'll get a video that just gets flagged and gets a manual review, or you can request a manual review if you get a copyright claim, things like that, and it will get watched. But 12 views, that's something I've never come across before. So yeah, I'm afraid I can't give you an answer on that because I've never actually experienced it. But I'm wondering, there must be others who have talked about it. So I mean, let's see. We'll do a very quick Google search here. So if we go YouTube private video with watches with views. Let's just see. Let's just see if we've got anything. How do it's private and deleted? How to share a private video? What's the difference between private? Yeah, so it's a pretty specific. It's a pretty specific thing. None of the things I'm getting here are telling us what to do with it. So yeah, that is a mystery. That is a mystery to me. Unless there's other people. No, the only other thing is that because it would have to be someone that had your Google account. So unless Mrs. Orders or the little orderlies are using the same account and maybe going onto that and accidentally playing back private videos. I've had that before. You might have seen occasionally I'll get a comment in here and it'll be me during a show. That's usually my children using one of my devices somewhere in the house, and they'll just go in and log on, and they think it's funny to put a comment on my show as me. I've now logged them in as their own accounts so that they can't do that, and I can see what they're doing. But that's the only other thing I can think of. So, or as Amorosia says, aliens. I like that. I like the aliens. Or a ghost or someone from another dimension. Ghost in the machine. Yeah, it is weird. Most likely, though, it is Google. Most likely, it is not that there's any sort of privacy breach because Google are pretty good in terms of if it's private. You've probably done this before. If you click on a private video, it pops up and says private. If you want to double check that, what you can do is go into an incognito window in Chrome. So if you're not familiar with that, if you're running your browser, and it works kind of the same on your mobile device as well, but if you click here and instead of new tab or new window, you go new incognito window, it'll bring you into this here. So if I'm here and I go to YouTube Pete Johns, what it will do is it'll go to my page, but as if I wasn't me. So this is what I can do. If I want to see what you see when you come to my page, you can actually see exactly this. So that's the other thing to do. Come in here and go to videos and just make sure it's not viewable and that it's not able to be viewed from there. And even get a link. So get the actual link of your video, go to that in incognito mode, and then see if that's going to help you. Yeah, it may be Bigfoot too. But yeah, and I think probably because I know that's the case for me. I'm signed into about 4 or 5 devices at any given time to my one YouTube account, which is not great security, but they're all here in my house. So yeah, maybe that's it. But yeah, no, hopefully, yeah, give it a test run and see what happens. But hey, views. Doesn't everyone want views? Isn't that a good thing? No, probably not when you don't know where they're coming from, right? Quick coffee break. See, I didn't even bring my water today, so I'm having to drink cold coffee. That's how we're rolling. Righty, so we'll go. I think we've got one question left. Might be able to get done in quick time here today. Excuse me a moment. My apologies. See, I needed the water. Question here from Brad. Brad says, I use this app called iCompress so I can shrink vids and songs small enough to share in Messenger chat. Is this a better option? Is there a better option for this same service? The only reason I ask is because I can never tell which video or song is the compressed one. When I save it, it saves both copy, a huge one, and a small shareable one. I would love a better app that does the same thing. Any suggestions? So, compressing audio or video to share in Messenger chat. So I guess you're talking in terms of the file sizes, and I'm assuming that this app, instead of compressing it into a zip file, it compresses it into a lower bitrate audio or video file so you can share it. I mean, to be honest, what I would say is that I tend to just upload it somewhere else and share the link. I've never been a fan of just using Messenger for sharing audio or video because it's limited. It's limited to, I think, 2 minutes of video or audio. I know, Jade, you use it a lot, so let me know if you can confirm it. But it is limited in how much you can share, and I just find the limitations of it too much. So I tend to upload it somewhere to Google Drive, Dropbox, iCloud Drive, OneDrive, wherever, and then share the link as opposed to actually sharing a file or uploading and copying a file. But yeah, if you did compress it, I would just use a file name. Just make sure that you put COM at the start in capitals, and that way you know which version of it is compressed. You can also go into the Files app, so the iOS Files app, and have a look there because you'll be able to quickly and clearly see which one was the first created file, and if it's video, one will be 30 megabytes, and if it's a compressed version, it might be 3 megabytes. So you'll be able to quickly and easily see the difference between the two. But depending on the use case, depending what the reason behind why you're actually needing to share the stuff, I would upload the full quality version, and then I would share a link to that using Google Drive or Dropbox. That's what I tend to do. And that tends to work the best. But I have, we were talking again, I keep mentioning Clubhouse, but oh, by the way, I do have, in fact, over on the Create, Record, Release group, we've got a few folks who are waiting on invitations, because the Clubhouse, the audio only social media platform, is invite only at the moment. So within our circle over at the Create Record Release Facebook group, we do have a few invitations available. So jump over to the Create Record Release Facebook group, createrecordrelease.com, if you want to get involved in that. It's a pretty fun platform. We're having a good time with it so far and testing that out. So try that. But the point I was making there is, we're looking to do some sort of collaboration stuff, and I think, using a shared platform like a Google Drive or a Dropbox is a better way and an easier way to do it. So that is the last question that we had here. So if anyone has any quick fire questions that they want to throw in here, we've got about 5 minutes left. So if you're here live on YouTube or Facebook, thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. I know that the audio has been and video has been a little glitchy today because of a few internet and power related issues that we're having here in Adelaide today. I need to go and do some checking and testing and turning off and on all that fun stuff in a moment. But we will do that as we go. We've got a big weekend coming up here as well. So we're right in the middle here. It's Sunday morning here in Australia. It'll be Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, depending where you are in the world. We've got the happy hour coming up. We're doing a request show today. So just playing some cover songs, having some fun. If you've got some songs you want me to try or from my list of songs, then come along to the happy hour. That's going to be kicking off in 4 hours' time from now. Assuming we have internet access, but hey, we'll find a way. We'll work around it, even if we don't, even if it's audio only. We'll see how we go. So please join me for the happy hour tomorrow. We have GarageBand Weekly. So if you're into your GarageBand, we'll be talking about anything and everything GarageBand related. And then, of course, we have my 5th anniversary show. So the late show tomorrow. The afternoon evening show tomorrow will be my 5th anniversary special. So we'll be spending a couple of hours talking retro. If you like nostalgia, if you like going back in time, I'm going to take you through sort of the history of the channel, how we started out here 5 years ago, what the differences between then and now, where we're going to show some of my embarrassing old clips, which will be a lot of fun. We're just going to have a bit of a party just for a couple of hours, kick back and a little bit slower paced, but you'll be able to be interactive here on the YouTube channel. So please come along to that one. Should be a lot of fun. And appreciate everyone for your support. Let's come over and give a shout out here to Jade. So in the next coming up in the next few minutes, Jade has her How To app on iOS, and she's looking at the new release Segments FX by Elliot Garage, who is I forgot the name of what they do, EG Pulse, creative EG Pulse. So Segments FX is coming up. As Bubba suggests here, if you did enjoy this, even with the warts and all here today, please hit the thumbs up. That just tells the YouTube robots that you enjoyed yourself today and you had some fun getting a little bit nostalgic about the history of computer music. Gary Hubbs, thank you. See you later. Get your request sorted. Yeah, Gary will no doubt have some sort of death metal song for me to try and attempt here today. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you, everyone, for being here. If you do have any comments or questions or anything else, please drop them down in the comments below. If you're watching on the replay, don't worry, we love you just as much. And if you're listening on the podcast version, thank you for being here. You're awesome as well. And you can also go to studiolive today.com/QA right now and put a question in, and it will be on a future show. Thank you, everyone. As we say at the end of every show, please be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, keep creating, and